Hello there. This is Being God's Obedient Servant channel. If you're new to this is the Bible study channel where we go through the King James Bible. And I like to go, book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. And so I explain to people today what the Bible means in certain areas, which parts pertain to us today and which parts don't. Because a lot of the Old Testament pertains to us today. And a lot of people are missing that. And so, I guess what I'm trying to do is right a wrong here. So, there's a lot of stuff about the Bible I didn't know till I was really late in life. And I wished I would have known when I was a lot younger. It would have helped me out a whole lot in the beginning. But yeah, today we're doing the whole book of Ruth. There's only 4 chapters, so if you ever read it, it is a quick reading. But yeah, there's a little bit to learn there. Mostly you learn from, if you're a faithful servant, the Lord will bless you. And so that's the main lesson we get from the book of Ruth. So let's go ahead and jump right on in here and get started. The book of Ruth, chapter 1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah. Always kind of weird how they joined those two. So Bethlehem was one area, Judah was another, but I don't know where that is on the map. But yeah, Bethlehem, Judah. Went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons Mahlon and Chilion. Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. And sometimes I have to, I forget I'm recording. I'm like, I'm trying to see this word in my head. And I'm like, no, you're recording. You got dead space there. Remember this. But to those who've been listening for a while, I am a little dyslexic. So some of these weird words I probably will brutalize. So I apologize if you know how to say it perfectly and I don't. But yeah, continue on here. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them, and the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. It's kind of odd that both sons with wives for 10 years didn't have one child, though. Kind of find that odd. But, I said, sometimes the Lord works in mysterious ways. He knew what was going to happen. And so, I've known quite a few people, they want to try to rush things. And I always try to tell them, says, let God work in His time. Don't try to go around Him. Because you may regret, what happens, I've seen some people, they do the in vitro or whatever stuff. They do the extra hormones, everything else, trying to force a pregnancy. And it's like, you have no clue what may happen. You may run into hard times and, you and your spouse lose your jobs or whatever. And next thing you know, it's like if it was just you and your spouse, hey, you can find something else. You can make do. You may have to move in with in-laws or whatever, cousins or something like that. If you lose everything and stuff. And then the Lord may say, okay, this is where you're going to be at. Now you're going to have your child. But if you put a child in the middle of that while you lose everything, oh, that's that's a stress and a hurt like no other. But I just said sometimes just to try. I like for tell people that sometimes Garth Brooks has a song, and I love it because the song's main title is I think the title of it is The Greatest Gifts, but the main part of the song says some of God's greatest gifts is unanswered prayers, and we have to remember that. Because sometimes we may be praying for something and God may tell you to be waiting. And if you try to rush it, He may let you have what you're praying for, but it's going to make something harder later. So anyway, let's continue on here. I went down a rabbit trail as usual, and I need to get back on the main track here. Verse 6. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab how that the Lord had visited His people in giving them bread. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return unto the land of Judah. And Naomi said unto her 2 daughters-in-law, Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you that ye may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. So, if you're kind of new to the way the Oxford English, the Old English is, she just telling her daughters to go find husbands in their own land and stuff and have a blessed life. Because, her sons, their husbands passed away. Her husband passed away, and we already know she's leaving the land of Moab, going back to Judah, where her kinsman's at. So, let's continue on, verse 10. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters. Why will ye go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say, I have hope, if I should have a husband also tonight, and should also bear sons, would ye tarry for them till they were grown? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes, that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. And they lifted up their voice and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. And she said, Behold, my sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after my sister-in-law. After thy sister-in-law. Sorry. Now, of course, Moab is not in the land of... it might be a section of Israel. I don't know where the Moabites were at. But either or. But they followed false gods. And so... that's when it says, return to her gods. That's why it's a little g. That's a false god. Anyways, continue on here. 16. And Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. So here's where God's going to deal great with Ruth, because not only is she staying true to her... Now the thing is, once a woman is married to a man, the woman becomes part of the man's family more than her original biological family. And that's the way it was. This is why the woman takes the surname of the man, and the children have the surname of their father, the man of the relationship, because it's supposed to go to that family. And so she's telling her now mother that I'm not leaving you. Where you go, I go. Where you stay, I'll stay. And the other part is, she's not going to go back to her false god. She's going to serve her God. And that's very powerful. It's a lot of people have a really hard time of doing stuff like that. But, she's dedicated to her mother. And later on, you're going to see that God's going to reward that faith and that love and everything in between. Verse 17. Where thou diest will I die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. When she saw that she was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. So they two went until they came to Bethlehem, and it came to pass, when they were come to Bethlehem, that all the city was moved about them, and they said, Is this Naomi? And she said unto them, Call me not Naomi, call me Mara. For the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Why then call ye me Naomi, seeing the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me? Now you have to remember, God's commandment is to women, a woman is to desire a husband, and he is to rule over her. If a woman does not desire a husband and birthing children, then she's useless in the eyes of the Lord. So the women in those times, which for thousands and thousands of years, and even in America all the way up until about the 1950s, women sought husbands. They didn't want to live in the world. They didn't want to be in the workforce. They wanted to serve their husbands. They wanted to follow God. And it pleased them to do so. God blesses that. And it's very, you talk to many women that actually still live that way today, which is very rare, but still do. They feel very fulfilled in life. They're very happy in life. And they can't even understand the thought of a woman wanting to have her own career and live alone and not have a family or anything else. It's it doesn't even, for some women that, women that truly follow God, they don't understand. They're just why would you do that to yourself? And the people that follow feminism in the world, follow the sin of the world, they think the other person is kind of a little crazy for not having their own career. But it's most of the time women pretty much go barren around the age of 40. And that's when a lot of women now with their careers are now trying to settle down, is in their mid to upper 30s, close to 40, and they can't have kids now. And you talk to most women that now is even that woman that did that wrote the show Sex and the City and stuff. She says she regrets every bit of it because she lived that life, and she said, now I'm alone. I have no chance of having anybody because she can't have kids. She doesn't have any kids. And once a woman gets to a certain age, it's like here with Naomi, it's I'm too old to get a husband. It's you get to a certain point. How's the saying today? It's it's always been the same saying. It's men seek a woman. The woman he wants is to be fit, feminine, and fertile. If they don't have those things, unless she's really, serving the man, being his assistant and everything else, and being a really good wife, even though she can't have kids, stuff like that. There's plenty of men out there still would like to have a wife, to have someone in their life. They live alone and stuff. But I said, a lot of these worldly women today, they don't even think about those guys. They're those guys mean nothing to them because they're career women. It's and then, well, anyways, just feminism is a sin and it's bad. You don't want to follow that. But yeah. So let's continue on here. Verse 22. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. Chapter 2. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth, of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, Let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, Go, my daughter. Now, in these times that you went and did work and stuff, you got certain parts of these fields that they're supposed to keep for the poor, and right now they fall into that, the poor. So it's like the little corners and stuff like that. She's going to go get some food for her and her mother, mother-in-law, mother, either or. And so even in those times, once you get to a certain age, working in the fields just wasn't an option. It's just your body just couldn't handle it. So the daughter went to go get them food, to work in the field and that, and hopefully, find grace. So anyways, verse 3. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was too light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. I keep wanting to say Abimelech. It's like, it's got an L, not a B. There's another one that said these names mess me up sometimes, but verse 4. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said unto the reapers, The Lord be with you. And they answered him, The Lord bless thee. Then said Boaz unto his servant that was set over the reapers, Whose damsel is this? And so, one thing a lot of men do this. I'm guilty of this well, I ain't going to say guilty. This is one thing I do as well. But in these times and stuff, you pretty much knew everybody around you. And so he sees someone new and doesn't even know who she is. Continue on. Verse 6. And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, It is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, Hearest thou not, my daughter? Oh, yeah, it's like he was asking her, now hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. So he was acknowledging to Ruth that, that they're related. And so if you're daughter of Naomi, you're daughter of him as well. Because when Naomi returned, everyone already knew the whole story about all the men passed away and the one faithful daughter-in-law came back with her. Verse 9. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels, and drink of that which the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, and bowed herself to the ground, and said unto him, Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? So here you see this woman, she already has the Lord in her heart because she's showing humbleness. So she's staying faithful to her mother, and she also has humbleness, and she doesn't mind working to feed her and her mother. She's doing a lot, so she's like what a lot of people would highly seek in someone with a great personality, loyalty, and not being lazy and stuff like that. Anyways, continue on here, verse 11. And Boaz answered and said unto her, It hath fully been showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother, and the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knowest not heretofore. The Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. Then she said, Let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord, for that thou hast comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaid, though I be not like unto one of thine handmaidens. Now see here, also real men and stuff always value, well, we're supposed to, if you're a Christian man anyways, especially, you're supposed to recognize someone for their good works and everything like that and reward them for it. You're supposed to help take care of them, because it's like, godly people in a lot of areas, it's hard to find sometimes. And search across America and most of the world today. If you're a person really following the Lord, you know how alone you can be. It is hard out there finding true followers. But yeah, so anyways, Boaz, said he's already acknowledged, he just told her about how he's already, just what he's known of her already, that she is someone to reward and honor. That she's an honorable person. Anyways, continue on here. 14. And Boaz said unto her, At mealtime come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. Now, honestly, I've never really done that, dipped my bread in vinegar. But evidently they liked it. I'm more of a chicken soup, chili, tomato soup, stuff like that. But to each their own. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat, and was sufficed, and left. And when she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, Let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not. So instead of now being left to the corners of the leftovers, they're now saying, let her go in and get of the good stuff as well. So, verse 16. And let fall also some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them that she may glean them, and rebuke her not. So she gleaned in the field until even, and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Now, if the barley is called, the sheaves, you beat those in the field, you gather them and you beat them, and the sheaves you didn't, the shells of the barley you didn't keep. And it's kind of like the same thing. They did the same thing with the wheat. We have machines that do everything for us today, so their lives are a lot harder. We had to beat it on a certain on a certain thing that they had. I forgot what it's called. But what would happen is, as they beat it, the shells would break loose and fly up in the air, and the breeze, normally you done it in the field, there'd always be a breeze, and the breeze would take the shell parts away, and you'd be left with the good part, the wheat or the barley. And so they would do that while in the field, and then took the good stuff home. So that way, it's like when you're carrying a lot of weight, it's good to carry only the good stuff and not the useless stuff. That useless stuff, though, as we know, is like I've learned, plants and stuff and crops a little bit. I grew up in a trailer park in a city area and stuff, so I didn't grow up on a farm learning all this stuff, but I have learned, over the years that, all this other stuff, even though it's useless at that time, it will decompose and help fertilize the land and help grow new stuff later. So, continue on, verse 18. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw that she had gleaned, and she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. And her mother-in-law said unto her, Where hast thou gleaned today? And where wroughtest thou? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee, And she showed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, The man's name with whom I wrought today is Boaz. Now, one thing I forgot to apologize with, I've been battling a sinus infection for the last couple of days, so this is why I'm a little hesitant in reading some things, and it's like I'm dealing with that at the same time. So just bear with me on that. Continue on, verse 20. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, Blessed be he of the Lord, who have not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, The man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. And Ruth the Moabitess said, He said unto me also, Thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they have ended all my harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean unto the end of barley harvest and of wheat harvest, and dwelt with her mother-in-law. Chapter 3. Then Naomi her mother-in-law said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well with thee? And now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. That's a little bit of a tongue twister to say when you get a sinus infection. Winnoweth. Wash thyself, therefore, and anoint thee, and put thy raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor, but make not thyself known unto the man until he shall have done eating and drinking. And it shall be, when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. And she said unto her, All that thou sayest unto me I will do. And she went down unto the floor, and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn. And she came softly, and uncovered his feet, and laid her down. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid, and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, Who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. And he said, Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that thou requirest, for all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman, howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I. So this process is her letting him know that she's interested in him to be her husband. But the way it goes is whoever is the closest relative is the one that inherits the wife. But he doesn't have to take her. But the next one in line is the one that is supposed to, he's first given the option to inherit the wife, because it's also in these times how it would be that if a woman was married to a man and he passed away and that man have a brother, then the brother that passed away, his wife goes to the brother that's still alive so that he can impregnate her and still have a child with the family name. So that's what's going on here. Let's continue on. 13. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning that If he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of a kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth. Lie down until the morning. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, Let it not be known that a woman came into the floor. Also he said, Bring the veil that thou hast upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her, and she went into the city. Now, for some people, sitting and goes, he gave her barley. That's their primary thing. You know, back then, it wasn't really money wasn't that important. It was food. But also, with this food, the extra that they have, they can go into town and sell it and can get money for it. So this is why you gathered what you could, and you ate for yourself. And if you had any extra, you can use it to make a little, to get some money to help yourself. So there's many ways you could provide for yourself and your family and stuff in those times. And nowadays it's a lot different because, well, it's just a lot more difficult today because people pretty much don't get to have land no more. The government taxes it too much and they take it from you if you don't pay the taxes. So you buy something, but if you don't give the government your little rental fee or whatever, they'll come and take it from you. Then you're left with nothing. It's really weird how corrupt the system has gotten, but it is what it is. Like I say to people today, it's like, if you think you're free in America, think again, because we're all slaves to that dollar bill. And these times and stuff, you literally could live off the land and be okay. No one really bothered you if you made a house somewhere, unless, you was trespassing harshly or something. But, in these times also, if they followed God, they tried to help the good poor. If you were poor and wicked, they were not allowed to help you. You're supposed to cast the wicked out of your cities and of your streets and stuff and communities, so you can be at peace. You can't have a peaceful society if you have wicked people in it. You're supposed to cast them out. But if you was a good person, godly person, and poor and stuff, everyone else is supposed to kind of try to help you. It's like God's commandment is if you've been blessed, you're to help those who haven't been blessed. That's why she was able to go to these certain corners of the fields and stuff and still collect stuff for her and her mother. Is because God commands that they leave those. So, anyways, let's continue on. 16. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, Who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done to her. And she said, These 6 measures of barley gave he me, for he said it to me, Go not empty unto thy mother-in-law. Then said she, Sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until he have finished a thing this day. So now Naomi's telling her daughter to sit and wait now. He will come to her. Chapter 4, and the last chapter. Then went Boaz up to the gate, and sat him down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city, and said, Sit ye down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advise thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants, and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know. for there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. Then said Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. So now the kinsman that is closer related to Naomi, is passing up on this because he doesn't want Ruth to wife. For what reason? Doesn't ever say. He just says that he can't do it. And so now Boaz is free to do so. Verse 7. Now this was the manner in former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. Though instead of having a contract in black and white, you just took off your shoe and gave it to your neighbor. Okay. But it said, this is the way they done things. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place ye are witnesses this day. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah. Now, if you're new to this, you don't know who Rachel and Leah is. That goes all the way back to Jacob. Rachel's the one he wanted, but he was deceived into marrying Leah first. But he had sisters as wives. Plus he had two the handmaidens of those as well. But anyways, Jacob was the one that was renamed Israel. I mess up a lot. I think even a couple of times I said that Isaac was renamed Israel, and I messed that up all the time. It's Jacob was renamed Israel. It's Jacob was the one that had the 12 sons, the 12 tribes of his. That's why it's called the 12 tribes of Israel. So I do apologize for that I said Isaac again, because Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the one that was renamed Israel. But anyways. So yeah, now they're hoping that this woman would be like Rachel and like Leah to make, the tribes of Israel. So continue on. Which two did build the house of Israel? Well, as I said, I've already talked about that. And do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. Some of these words, man, I tell you right now, science and fiction. Verse 12. And let thy house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. Now, it would have been a whole lot harder for any of this stuff to have happened if she already had a son or had a child from the other husband. And so this was a lot better blessing in that sense. As I said, sometimes you don't want to rush God. Let God work how he wants to work. Verse 14. And the women said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age, for thy daughter-in-law which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. Now see also with Boaz having this son with Ruth, it's also a grandson to Naomi, because it said that's the job of the kinsman. So it keeps the name, the Elimelech's name. I said it said that was part of that. So it's all tied in. It's hard for us to understand it. Probably some people understand it real easy, but anyways, the real blessing is coming up next. Verse 16. And Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom and became nurse unto it. And the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, There is a son born to Naomi, and they called his name Obed. And he is the father of Jesse, the father of David. For those that don't know, that's King David. He would be the second king of Israel. So, Ruth is the great-grandmother of King David. Let's continue on here. Verse 18. Now these are the generations of Pharez. Pharez beget Hezron, and Hezron beget Ram, and Ram beget Aminadab, and Aminadab beget Nahshon, and Nahshon beget Salmon, and Salmon beget Boaz, and Boaz beget Obed, and Obed beget Jesse, and Jesse beget David. And that is it. I said it's a quick book. It's not some nice stuff in there, but yeah. As I said, if blessings will come your way, whether it's this life or the next, for our faith. And stories like this, these books that are written to share the stories of the history, is to reaffirm these. This is why we definitely always need to keep reading the Old Testament and studying it to see which parts pertain to us today. Like a lot of people sit there and think that, like I said before, they don't think the Old Testament matters anymore because they think that Jesus finished the Old Testament. It's like, no, Jesus finished the law. The law is in Deuteronomy, and it's in 4 primary parts from what I've studied. You have the circumcision of men. That's no longer law. You have the dietary laws. Jesus finished that. You have blood sacrifices to cover your sins. We no longer do that. Jesus was the final blood sacrifice. And also being stoned to death for sinning against the Lord. We're now under grace. We have our whole lives to get right with the Lord. But also remember what Jesus says, always be ready, for you not know when the master of the house cometh. Which means you don't know when you're going to die. So always be ready to meet the Lord. Don't say, well, I got plenty of time because I'm young. There's a lot of young people pass away all around the world every single day. Children, teenagers, young adults, middle-aged. A lot of people never see old age on earth. So if you're ready to meet the Lord, then you don't have to worry about it. You will be born again one day. And until then, you will sleep and enjoy peaceful rest, which is kind of like, being known as, heaven, versus the people that live evil when they pass. it's kind of described that, the worm never die, something don't rest and the worm never dies, something doesn't rest. I don't know it memorized right off the top of my hand. Oh, it'd be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's going to be their torment while they rest. It's kind of, from my understanding of what I've studied of it more, for when we pass, it's kind of like going to sleep, and you're either going to have a peaceful sleep or like be stuck in a nightmare you can't wake up from. And until Judgment Day. Now, if you were beheaded for your faith in God, you'll be part of the first resurrection, which means you'll bypass Judgment Day. God says, "Blessed are those who partake in the first resurrection, for they will not partake in the second." But to be part of the first resurrection means you have to be executed for your faith in the Lord, for following God. So, anyways, it's as I said, these stories like this, though, this is to let us know that, if we live a godly life, and you remember, Ruth lived a humble life. She didn't seek riches and glory. She didn't seek a career. She didn't seek any of that stuff. She sought God. Naomi's God. She went from following false gods to following Naomi's God, the true one and only living God. And she stayed faithful to her mother-in-law. So she was faithful, she was humble, and she wasn't lazy. God rewards. Those are simple things to some people, but to a lot of us, that is fascinating. It's people like that you just don't see anymore. It's rare. But in those times, especially coming from a different land, from the Moabites, and she left all that and her family there and took on a whole new life with the Israelites, that's very, very rare. She had a lot of faith that everything was going to work out. But she said even if she dies there, she'll be buried there as well. She'll live there and she'll die there. And it's like, that's dedication. That's an honorable person. That's to be commended and rewarded. And she was. Because Boaz was a rich man. And so she still didn't seek riches, but it was given to her. It's like the son of King David, King Solomon. He was asked by the priest at the time, or he was asked by God, either or. He was asked, what does he want? And he prayed for wisdom. He didn't pray for money. He didn't pray for power. He didn't pray for none of that. He prayed for wisdom. And so God blessed him, saying, okay, wisdom I will give you. And he was known as the wisest man ever on earth. He says, but since you didn't ask for the others, because you only sought wisdom, I will also give you peace, money, and power. So, as I said, God rewards faith. He rewards, being a good person. But I said sometimes we don't get rewarded in this life. That's why God says, do not build rewards on earth, build rewards in heaven. We're not to care for things of the earth, for the earth will be destroyed and made anew one day. So, this is the lessons that we learned. So, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end this one here. So, we're right here at 50 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed the reading. Sorry for my nasal problem, my sinuses. They made pronouncing some of this stuff because it gave me a sore throat. Made pronouncing some of these things a little difficult. But as I said, it could always be worse. I could have a severe migraine and all this other stuff that can come with them as well. But Luckily, I'm just dealing with a sore throat. So thank God for that. So, anyways, go ahead and end this lesson here. So until next time, God bless, good night, and goodbye.